Since 2021, I've been working on a number of book projects in the nonfiction realm, more importantly, in the self-publishing realm. And boy, I've accumulated about 6 publications so far, and I'm getting ready to launch this. But instead of launching it strictly right over to Amazon or anywhere else, I thought I would try out Kickstarter for a change. And that's what leads me to interviewing today's guest, two-time guest, SD Huston. Shannon's a good friend of mine, excellent moderator over on my live streams over on the podcast. She is just a gem. She just completed her Kickstarter campaign where the original goal was at $1,000. She made triple that amount through funding, which is stellar. So I wanted to pick her brain, for lack of better terms, to get a little bit more insights about her experience in Kickstarter, what she did right and what she could have probably changed just a little bit, and how I could be able to implement that. So if you're the author that's looking to break into Kickstarter, then you might want to grab out your notepad, because SD Huston's about ready to take you to school. Very fitting considering that she is a former teacher. So without any further ado, this is the interview with SD Huston, my buddy Shannon. Okay, so now you are a 2-time guest of the podcast channel. How you feeling? You're almost a gold jacket status.
Getting there. What do I get for that?
A gold jacket, although it's all virtual though, because
I was gonna say, you're gonna do like a little sticker, a banana with a gold jacket.
Yeah, there you go. But I really, when I saw you had started this Kickstarter campaign a good handful of months ago, I thought, wow. I've followed your journey as an author over the past year to 2 years now, I think it is. And You've been very public about your numbers and how you really haven't functioned into the black just yet. You're still kind of in the red. You're still in the hole, if you will. What was your decision-making process in going to a Kickstarter campaign, having the modest results you already had?
So, tell you a secret here is I actually looked into Kickstarter for the first time in 2013.
Really?
But when I looked, there were no books there and I had no following, and you really do need a little bit of a following. So I think Kickstarter was just there in the back of my mind for years and years. And when I start hearing of authors using it, and then of course, Brandon Sanderson, his big deal. And I had already kind of decided at that point, I think this is what I'm going to do for the next book. And it is because I am in the red. I am still $4,000 in debt with my first series because, I did everything they say you should do to publish a quality product, get editors and signers and, pay for your ISBN, especially if you want to take your book wide, which is my plan. And so I did all the things that, they say you should do to make a quality product. And I make money every month. But it's only like $10 to $20. So trying to make up that $4,000 is, I'm going to be 80 before I make it up. So I thought, if I'm going to continue to do this, I'm never going to stop writing. I love writing. I've always been writing my whole life. So, but if I want to do this and make it into something that's viable to get my words out to the world and publish it, I can't continue to go in the negative. And so that's when Kickstarter, that was the main reason why I decided to do Kickstarter. Now, when I started setting up my campaign, I realized there's actually another goal there, and that is just another place to get visibility because, Amazon's getting flooded. And with the rise of AI, we're going to have even more books coming out in the next couple of years or more, depending on how all that falls out. But already there are AI books being put out with using authors' names. This is something I learned from BookmarkCon. Trademark your author name, because people are taking established authors on Amazon and using their names to publish AI books. And you can't fight it on Amazon unless you've trademarked your name.
Interesting. Well, I'd love to open up that can of worms, but I definitely want to make sure we're focused on Kickstarter because I am super, super interested in this area. So at what point did you say, okay, we're going to go ahead and pull this trigger?
August of last year.
Interesting. And so when you did pull that trigger, what were some of the first steps that you had to do?
I attended, I had already been listening to tons and tons of podcasts that were specifically talking about Kickstarters. And then I tried to find the ones that were geared toward authors and what authors were doing. So there was quite a few out there who talked about their Kickstarters and how it ran. You have, I Wish I Knew Then, Sarah Rosette. She did a couple Kickstarters already. Leslie Penelope, she has a podcast. I can't remember the name of it, but she also did Kickstarter. So I listened to all their podcasts, and then I attended a class with Russell Nolte and Monica Leonel, where it was a free class. But then, of course, at the end, they talked about their course that you could pay for, which I did pay for it. But I was like the only one left behind at the end of the webinar talking with Russell, because I wanted to know numbers, like what's the average number that people pull home? What's the success rate of the people that they've worked with in their course? I wanted to know all that before I bought the course. And the numbers to me were all really, really good. So, yeah. And then, so I went through the course.
Very interesting. So would you solely credit your successful Kickstarter campaign run to them? Or is that just kind of part of a larger, equation here?
I would say it's part of the larger equation, only because as I was going through the course, before I even started the course, I started doing my deep dive on Kickstarter. So first I looked at just publishing, all the books that were publishing. What did they do? How did they set up their page? What did it look like? Which ones were successful? And what did those look like compared to those that were not successful? And then I, narrowed it down to my genre. And then I also looked at other campaigns that were just going at that time, just to get more idea of what other, creators were trying to do to make their product and their project stand out among all the projects that were there. So there were things I had already kind of come to the conclusion of, and I'd been writing down notes. And then as I was going through the course, I learned lots of stuff in the course, but there were parts where I was like, okay, I already picked this up on my own. I picked this part up on my own. So there were different things I picked up on my own because I did all that deep diving, but that deep diving took months of work. So if someone's like, I don't want to go through months of deep diving, just give it to me in one place, the course would be worth it in that case, for sure. So
what was the main differentiator between the successfully funded campaigns for Kickstarter versus the ones that weren't able to get the full funding?
I don't know that this is written anywhere or anyone supports this, but in my estimation is that those that were text heavy, that didn't have images, even if they did have images, but it wasn't a lot. It was very small compared to the text that's on the story page.
Interesting. Now, did video play any part in successful funding?
Yeah, so I can't pull those figures off the top of my head. There are figures on that. It's a high percentage of Kickstarters that are successful have an introduction video. Of those that are not successful, a high percentage of them do not have an introduction video.
Why do you suppose people go without doing something like a video or putting images in there? Is it that they're lazy or they don't have the right resources?
I think for those of us who are on YouTube, it's easy for us. Oh yeah, just turn on the camera and start talking or whatever you got to do.
Yeah, that's true. I take that for granted.
Yes, but for someone who's never done it before, it could be, hard to get on board with that. And that, I did learn that BookBrush, they will, take your introduction video, you make it, and they will edit it and make it all snazzy and everything. Obviously, I know how to do my own. I did my own. And it was something that I kind of, for a minute, faltered on before my Kickstarter went live, is that I put myself in the video and I was talking, but everybody in my genre, they were just doing like their book trailers as their video. And so I thought, wait, I'm doing something that nobody else is doing. So am I going to look like the odd man out, or is this going to be a good thing? And I shared it with the YouTube mastermind group I'm part of with Andy from Self Pub with Andy. And
shout out to Andy. What's up, Andy? Love you, man.
Yes. And he was the first one, I think, to respond. I was like, hey guys, here's my introduction video. I'm now having, it was like last minute where I was about to go live. I was like, I feel like it's cheesy and nobody else has themselves in the video. What do you think? And Andy's like, no, this is good. So I ended up keeping it in there. And so I think that was definitely part of it. I think people do want to see the creator. And I would say, I'm pro AI. I definitely am pro AI. I can see the benefits of what it's going to do for us. But I also think this is a time when creators, doesn't matter if you're an artist or a writer or whoever you are, it's a good time to start making that connection one-on-one or seemingly one-on-one through video with your audience where they can see you and they know who you are.
Yeah, that's so true. There's so much to be said about, building trust by actually seeing the whites of the other person's eyes. I think that's really cool. And not to mention you are comfortable on camera. At least you always have appeared to me to be comfortable on camera. Somebody who's natural, which I have to amend what I said. I said lazy. And I have a feeling there's a few listeners right now that are probably going, Dale, come on, man. I'm not lazy. I'm just not skilled in that area. I'm not, ready to get on camera. What would you recommend to those out there that are reluctant to do video, especially for video for a Kickstarter campaign?
Well, I think the alternative is to do like a book trailer instead as the introduction video. So I see those. Like I said, every Kickstarter that was out at that time in my genre, that's all they did. So there was no one else who was on video. And I think that's changed. I think I saw someone on Dana. She's in my Dana Claire from Bookbrush. She's in my genre.
You're dropping all these names here. Dana Claire. Shout out. Love me some Dana.
Kickstarter just launched this past Sunday. I don't know when this video is coming out, but she's in her intro video. So yeah.
That is really, really cool. So how now that we kind of discussed a little bit about video being the differentiator here, what would you recommend would be a good length for a book trailer? Or in an instance like what you did, how long was your video breaking down the Kickstarter campaign?
I say 2 minutes or less. Yeah. I would say at least a good 30 seconds to give your viewers a good idea of what you're doing. But yeah, I'd say less. Don't make it more than 2 minutes.
Interesting. Very good. Now, when you did this video, did it just live and die on Kickstarter, or did you end up putting that onto your YouTube channel? Because obviously you've got over 1,000 subscribers now. So I imagine that probably would have done some good there, or did it need more context by being on the Kickstarter site?
So there's context in it that's specific to the Kickstarter site. So because and this was actually from the course I took with Russell Nolte and Monica Leonel, is that in your introduction video, because they appear on screen for their videos. Part of the introduction video is why are you doing a Kickstarter? So you want to tell them why you're excited about this project and why you're bringing it to Kickstarter. So there's that part of the video is in there.
And so very briefly explain to me, like, let's pretend like we're shooting the video here right now for your Kickstarter campaign. What did you cover in that? And I mean, feel free to just riff if you want to, or you can give me some bullet points of what you covered in that.
Yeah, I don't remember everything I did cover, but I do know I introduced the project. I didn't have a book trailer done yet. I was in the process of making my own book trailer, which is done now, but I threw together some, I say threw for me, it's easy to do this because I love graphics. I love working with graphics. But for someone who doesn't work with graphics, this is a bit a harder step here, but I found images that represented my book, the emotions of my book, and put some lines from the book itself with it. So I did like a mini trailer in between me talking. So I'm couched on either side of this like mini trailer. And then, I included, here's what it's about. Here's why I want to write it. Of course, I talked about how I realized after finishing my first series that I really love dragons because there was only one dragon alive during 3rd century Ireland in the myths. And I included him as much as I could. And he didn't have wings, but I gave him wings. So I was like, I just love dragons. You know what? Let me just go with this. I'm going to do dragons for our next series. And that's how the series was started, was I'm doing dragons for next series. But I didn't want to do fire dragons. And so I came up with ice dragons. And yes. And so I talked about that evolution of me wanting dragons in my series and why that just really draws me. And that's how I came up with the series. Yeah.
Interesting. Okay. So how does putting together a Kickstarter campaign differ from publishing your books like you've done in the previous, 3 books that you've done? I think you've done 3 in a series, correct?
That's correct. Yeah, you can offer so much more on Kickstarter. Okay. So in a way, and I think Russell has even said this, that Kickstarter is almost like direct sales. Because if you have a direct sales page with your books, you can offer other things with your books. You can do journals, t-shirts, pillowcases, whatever you can think of. Well, all these things you could think of that could go with your book, you could put together to use as your reward tiers in your Kickstarter. So yeah, you get to choose like all these different unique things that you wouldn't have on a retailer platform.
Could you be able to recall the number of different perks that you made available and which perk performed the best?
So I had 9 tiers, okay. And I actually sold at every tier, which is, I thought that was amazing because when I've looked at other Kickstarter campaigns, some of the tiers you could see just did not sell. Like nobody bought them or backed them. And so I kind of thought, well, I don't want to offer something that nobody's going to want. And I still didn't think that anybody was going to back every single tier. But yeah, let me see. I think I have it pulled up here. Okay, so my best tier was Fall, the Element of Earth. It was $35, and that was the paperback tier. And the way I set everything up is that every tier included everything from the one before. So level 1 was $1. That was the prequel novella. Level 2 was $10. That was the prequel novella and the ebook. And I also had the electronic bookmark and the something else in there. It's all electronic. So up through the first 4 was all electronic. And the one that was my most popular was level 5, which was the first time that something was physical, which just supports everything that I always say to everybody is that, people say they want to do a Kickstarter for an audiobook. It's very hard to do a Kickstarter for an audiobook. It is not a digital, or it's not a physical product. It's a digital product. So you have to be really smart about it. I have not checked Dana Claire's Kickstarter, but hers was built around an audiobook, but she was very smart in how she set up her reward tiers. There's a lot of actual physical products part of her reward tiers. So I want to go check it out again. I haven't seen it if she's got fully funded, but she was like halfway there just like by the end of Sunday, the first day. So so I figured it's pretty good. But so that first tier that did really well was a physical tier in the paperback.
Although we have to give you some credit because I think your initial the initial funding was set at, I think, $1,000. And didn't you end up tripling that?
Yes. So it ended at $3,800.
Wow. So literally you just took and almost zeroed out your first series with the amount that you had raised with this. Oh my gosh.
People have said that.
Yeah.
Yeah. Although you don't get all that money.
Okay, so there is some that Kickstarter is going to be taking on their behalf. And then, of course, going through print fulfillment, they're going to take their cut. But you're doing much better, though, with this one.
Yes. Well, when I set the amount for $1,000, my goal was to pay for everything it costs to produce the book, including, fulfilling the tiers. Okay. And so after I calculated out, like if I made $1,000 and I paid for all the tiers and I paid for everything I've already paid for, the cover, all that, how much would be left over? And I was going to walk away with $160.
Not terrible. So, I mean, it's, don't go buy a Lamborghini anytime soon, but no. I would say that's pretty darn good considering it was your first foray into that. And I was excited to hear what you were doing. So you initially launched this, and I think it happened right about the same time that you were doing the AuthorTube Writing Conference, which you're all kinds of insane for having those two things put back to back. But you had the great news, I think, on the first day of AuthorTube Writing Conference that you had hit the goal. So how was that like, and how were you able to do that so fast?
So the Kickstarter, right? I started thinking of it in August. I started doing all my deep dive, started all my research. I started the course from Russell Nolte and Monica Leonel. I started that like in February or March is when I started it. So I already had lists of things that I could possibly, use for my reward. So, I mean, there was a lot of planning that went into it. But then setting it all up, I kind of did get kind of down to the wire because the AuthorTube Writing Conference kind of took over. But I started the day before the AuthorTube Writing Conference started. It was done on purpose because I wanted to leverage a big audience that I could possibly have. And I didn't fund on the first day, but you're close. So I was at 75% funded at the end of my first day of my Kickstarter. So going into the first day of the AuthorTube Writing Conference was the second day of my Kickstarter, and I gained all of $1. So the next day I had a panel on my channel. It was the first page critique panel, and Mark Leslie Lefebvre and
Love that guy.
other.
We just keep dropping names today.
Well, it's because when I was doing my closeout of that session, I was talking about I do have my Kickstarter that's going, and by the way, I did it on purpose for the AuthorTube Writing Conference, but it wasn't worth it because I'd made $1. It was right after that. Right after that, Mark backed my campaign.
Oh, man, seriously. But, anybody that's listening to this, Mark Leslie Lefebvre is the founder of Cobo Writing Life, and he's also the in charge of business development over Drafted Digital currently. So he is an absolute legend. Highly recommend his nonfiction and his fiction books. They're absolutely fantastic. So you ended up getting fully funded because Mark went ahead and helped out a little bit. So
he even put in there, he says, I got you close. You just need a little bit more. So I think is what he sent me a note. I was fully funded by the next morning. I didn't even know it though. I was so busy getting up that next morning trying to get things going that I never even checked my Kickstarter. And people just started saying, "Congratulations, Shannon." I'm like, "Thanks, but why?"
Oh wow! So that was a good thing to discover. I'm sure for sure. Now, share with me real briefly what's the fulfillment process going to be like for you for ebooks and for the print books?
So the book was already done. I did have one last proofread. Because I did, on the last time I was on your channel, actually, last interview, I told you how I was going to use a typo buster team. And I did. I put my typo buster team together. They were the last ones to go through my book, and they did find some typos, which it happens because, I had alpha readers, beta readers. I had 2 human editors. I sent my book through per writing aid several times, but my typo buster team still found errors in the novel. So you could do a whole lot, and you're still going to find errors. But yeah, so I had not done the final proofread. That is done now. However, part of my stretch goals, one of the stretch goals we hit was to have some artwork put at the beginning of the book, which I thought I'd be able to get the ebook out right away, but now I'm waiting on that artwork to get done.
That totally makes sense.
And so,
now, where are you going to fulfill through? Are you just self-fulfilling that? Are you going to order like a print run from Ingram Spark or Book Vault or something like that?
So all the e stuff, because there's tons of e stuff. I'm gonna do most of everything I can through to send it from BookFunnel. Okay. So I think there's a couple things I can't. I don't think you can do video through BookFunnel, and I have an animated book cover, and I also animated that I paid for, but I figured out how to animate my bookmark. So I animated my bookmark, so that was in there too. So I have those things that I'll have to go a different way. So those things will be mostly through BookFunnel. Most of the e-stuff is going to be delivered by September, which is, by the way, even though the book was done and I thought I'd get it out in August, I did give myself a month, and I put on my Kickstarter September is when it would be fulfilled, just in case something happened, which is what happened because I'm having artwork done. So you want to give yourself those, even if you think you can have it by this certain month, give yourself another month or 2 to get things fulfilled. That way your people who back you, they're not expecting it right away. They're expecting it in this month. But the rest of it right now, I priced everything, the print books and all that is all going to be through Ingram. Because when I was pricing, that's who I priced it through. But I have not gone back in because I have to still put that picture in there when it comes in and not reprice it. But I want to go check out Book Vault. I really want to check them out and see what they can do.
Yeah,
too.
I think you and I have been having some texting conversations back and forth about it. Like when I get excited about something, it's got to be for real. Hey, we're getting towards the end of the podcast. And normally I ask the same question that I ask all guests, but I'm going to kind of change it, tweak it just a little bit today here. What advice would you have to give to somebody, an aspiring author or self-publisher, considering the avenue of Kickstarter?
You do need an audience. It does not have to be huge. If you have an audience of 50 people, an audience doesn't mean like it has to be like newsletter subscribers or just YouTube. If you're on Facebook and you have followers, you're on Instagram, you have, if you're somewhere out there and you've got someone who's following you, if you have at least 50 people, I would say that's probably enough. And I would start small, of course. I wouldn't do a large goal. And do your first one easy. I told myself I should have done my first one easy. This one, like I said, I had 9 reward levels, and I had someone back me at every level. But that's a lot of stuff to keep track of. And it's a lot to do. And I thought, why didn't I make this easy? I should have just had ebook, paperback, hardback. And then, have some digital stuff in there. That's all I should have done. But it's okay. I don't think I could have done less, to be honest. But if you want to just try it out, that might be the best way to do it. And I would say probably the best thing to do it is either get like a special edition cover on a book you already have published. It is better to do it if you have something published already. The best Kickstarters I see that get the most funding are those where they have an omnibus that they're doing, and they're doing a special edition cover for an omnibus. So they already have a backlist of books that they can offer as ebooks. Hey, here's the omnibus with 3 books, but you can get the first ebook at $5, and the second you can get 2 ebooks at $10 or 3 ebooks at $15, and so that you can build it up from there. So that's when I see them as being most successful.
You've been listening to the Self-Publishing with Dale podcast. Visit us at selfpublishingwithdale.com for more information on how you can level up your self-publishing business. Also, check out our growing video-on-demand service, chock full of free and premium content, when you head over to theselfpublishinghub.com. If you enjoyed the show, please consider leaving a review on your preferred podcasting platform. We thank you for tuning in, and we'll see you in the next episode.